Well, I'm a falconer. I happen to be probably the most blessed guy on the planet, the way I look at it. First of all, you saw falconry, the sport of kings. I went ahead and got that off of there in a hurry because a lot of people see that and they go, oh, we didn't bow to him. You're going to have that opportunity later. I don't know if everybody knows what a falconer is, but I kind of want to give you an idea. The definition of falconry is the art or the sport of training and hunting with birds of prey. It's pretty awesome, huh? Some of y'all are going, huh? Like that? Little Scooby-Doo. So I get to go out every day and I train birds and I go out in the woods and I hunt with them. But I kind of want to tell you how that started. I used to own a pet store. And I was in my store one day and a guy walked in, it was like any other day, and he wanted to buy some mice to feed something. And as I'm over there getting mice out of this tank for the guy, I looked at him and I asked a question. And at the time, I had no idea, asking this simple question that I asked hundreds of other people, that it would change my world. It would flip my life upside down. And that question was simple. I looked at him and I said, what are you feeding? And he looked back at me and he said, a red-tailed hawk. Now, I had all kinds of stuff in the store, and I knew about birds, but I had no idea about birds of prey. So my first thought was, what are you doing with a red-tailed hawk? And he says, you want to see it? I said, sure. So we go outside. He brings out this red-tailed hawk. Look very similar. I'll give you a better visual. We'll bring out a real one. How about that? You can see one up close. So he shows me this red-tailed hawk. And the next thing he asked me was, do you want to go hunting with me? All right. Let me have this, open this, good. And falconry's also done a lot of things for me, landed me that hot wife right there too. Who needs puppies? I got birds. So he asked me if I want to go hunting, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, I hunted anyway, but I was like, sure, whatever this is about. He takes me out there, and the next thing I happen to see, and this is a short clip of what I saw that day that just gave me goosebumps. This is what I saw. Strength, charisma, but grace and beauty all combined into one. I was hooked. But for the next 4 years or so, I just hunted with him. He was my friend with the boat. You know the old adage, the better thing actually owning the boat is having a friend that owns the boat. He was my friend with the bird. So I hunted with him as much as I possibly could. And then one day I decided to get a bird of my own. And at the time, I was just intrigued with the hunting aspect of these birds. Little did I know until I got deeper into this, the historical impacts that falconry has had on our world. We're not sure exactly where falconry began, but we believe it began somewhere in the Far East. There's actually documentation of the Chinese having birds of prey 680 BC. That's like over 4,000 years ago. There's a story that an Arab king saw a bird of prey take game in the desert and ordered his men to catch that bird, maybe out of necessity. Maybe they're hungry and they figured, hey, I can get hold of that bird. I can catch food every day. Nobody really knows. But we find throughout history that it was popular in Japan and Kazakhstan and Mongolia and all these different places. But where it really had its biggest impact was in medieval society. Now, we all know we've heard of the Renaissance era, the Crusades that happened, and that's probably when it became popular in Europe. This is Henry VIII. He was a huge falconer, loved falconry. Frederick II, also a falconer. Many people throughout history, you will find, were falconers. Genghis Khan, Elizabeth I, Edward the Confessor. He was a huge part of their society. And so now as a falconer, I'm beginning to look and think, man, I'm not just a guy out in the woods flying a bird around every day. I'm part of something. I'm part of something that has been going on for over 4,000 years. That kind of gives me chills just thinking about it now. It's pretty awesome. This is my view every day. This is what I see when I look up into the sky of these birds. Well, as the years went on and on and on, I decided, I need to do something more with these birds because the more I studied, the more I found that being in the woods with these guys like this is almost spiritual. and I spend about 5 or 6 days doing this every week. But I need to do something a little more. I need to share this. Because I am so blessed, it would be selfish and wrong and sinful almost if I were to keep it to myself. How can we share this? So I figured out a couple of ways. Let's start a business. I want to do falconry every day. I don't want to work for somebody. I want to play in the woods all day with my birds. So let's figure out a way to make some money at this thing. A guy told me, he said, I can tell you how you're going to make money. Start out with $1 million. Or start out with $2 million, rather. You end up with $1 million because you're going to lose in this venture. But we started doing some things, guided hunts, taking people out. Oh, this is something I got talked into. The first and only time I ever put tights on, but that was an event. And actually, tights aren't that uncomfortable. Never again. Let's get off that. But taking people out on hunts and looking at their faces and knowing what they're feeling inside to see these birds. What I do is like walking into a National Geographic episode every day. It's live. I'm a participant. The difference is whenever I get done, I pack up my actors and go home. And then I start the episode all over again tomorrow. It's pretty fascinating. Education. We love to educate people. And that brings me to my next thing. A lot of people have trouble comprehending why we would take a bird like Peyton. Say, hey, Peyton, yay. And she has a hood on so she can't see you guys. Y'all might scare her. So she's just staying calm. But to take a bird like her and out of the wild and utilize her, some people have a problem with that. So I want to explain it like this. These birds, red-tailed hawks, most common bird of prey in North America. They have a 90% mortality rate their first year of life. For those who aren't mathematicians, that's out of every 100, 90 die. Before they reach maturity, that actually goes up. And you may end up with only like 5 that make it to adulthood. Well, this bird eats about 2,000 rodents a year. That's significant. That's great for our environment, right? Without them, we would be in a mess. But there's 4 main causes of death. They get hit by cars, they get electrocuted, people shoot them, and they die from starvation because of lack of habitat. Now, what do those 4 things have in common? Us. When I take a bird of prey out of the wild, I train her. I make sure physically she's sound, she's in good shape. And I'm going to keep her and hunt her until she reaches maturity. This is Peyton's last year with me. This spring, she'll be released after 8 years of being with me. She don't care. She don't. There's some days I don't care either. So I'm going to release her back to the wild. She's mature now. She's over that juvenile hump. She's going to go out and start having babies. Hopefully those babies will make it. But statistically, her mother never would have made it. She would have been part of that 90%. But now we've taken her, we've put her back. Her babies grow up. They start eating tons and tons of rodents every year. Those are babies in the wild that never would have been there had we not put her mother in captivity to start with. So as a falconer, I'm also somewhat of a conservatist, if that's a word. But I believe in taking things only for their good, putting them back where they belong. And so I would challenge you this. You're not falconers. Any falconers in the group? Yeah, probably not. There's not many weirdos around here. It's me. We all think, well, there's nothing we can do. But in the 1960s, when DDT was around, the chemical that was killing all the peregrine falcons and the bald eagles, it was falconers and other people who took charge and actually said, we need to do something. So we did. We took peregrine falcons and bred them and turned them back loose in the wild. But as lay people, what can you do? It's Earth Day. Don't throw your trash on the side of the road, even biodegradable trash. Apple cores, potato chips, chewing gum, banana peels. What eats that stuff? Now what have you done? There's a buffet beside I-95 for these guys. They don't see the Mack truck coming when they're headed for the median to catch the rat. So it's important for us to pay attention to what we do, even the things that we think are, oh, it's no big deal. Something will eat that. You're right. And be aware. And I would challenge you too. When you go home today, be aware of your surroundings just a little bit. Because these guys are out there, and you might just get a chance to see one. Thank you guys so much.